In this video we're going to talk about washes. First of all, what is a wash? It's a technique that helps you bring out the surface details of your model as well as give it some depth overall. Now there are a few ways to make washes, so I'll cover them here in this video. The first thing I always do before doing any washes is to apply a nice gloss coat onto the model. This will help the wash flow on the surface as well as give you a better chance to clean up any mistakes that you may make. I shoot Pledge Future Floor Shine through my airbrush as my gloss coat, but you can use any brand that you prefer. First technique we'll look at is using oil paints. What you'll need is some brushes, Q-tip or paper towel, and a container to mix the oil paints. You also need oil paints, of course, and the brand is totally up to you. Here I'm using the color Lamp Black. You can use a lighter color if needed, depending on the color scheme of your model. You also need thinning medium to dilute the oil paints into a wash. This can be turpenoid or turpentine, but I highly suggest using mineral spirits. It's not as harsh as the other thinners, so you have more working time before it actually starts to eat up your gloss coat. We need to first make the wash. I use a dropper to retrieve some of the thinning medium, in this case Mona Lisa mineral spirits, and add it to the container. Here I use about a dropper full. Now, taking a good sized brush, I grab a dollop of the oil paint. You don't need that much, just about a dab, about the size of a small pill. With the oil paint on the brush, stir it into the container with thinning medium and give it a good mix. Now we're ready to apply the wash to some pattern lines and details. With about a size 1 brush, load the brush with some wash. Then lightly touch the tip of the brush to the pattern line and let the wash flow into it. The capillary action should do the rest. Don't worry about getting some on the outside of the lines, you'll clean that up later. Don't forget to go around and fill up some of the smaller details as well, like rivets, icons, and any small details that's supposed to stand out. Once you have given all the panel lines and details a good wash, set the model aside and let it dry. With oil paints, it might take up to an hour or maybe more. Once the wash is dry, it's time to do some cleanup work. Here I'm using a Q-tip, but you can also use pieces of paper towel if you want. We're going to dip the Q-tip into some clean thinner that we use to dilute the oil paint. Now you don't want to drench the Q-tip or paper towel, you just want to get it moist. This is why I'm dabbing some of the excess thinners onto a paper towel. Now gently wipe over the surface to clean off any wash that might have gotten where it shouldn't be. Don't grind into it. You should just wipe right off the glossy surface. You also don't want to clean off any wash in the panel lines or crevices either. As well, remember not to concentrate on one area for too long. The thinner will eat through the gloss coat to the paint underneath. If you gave it a nice cover with the gloss coat, you shouldn't have any problems getting everything cleaned up. As you can tell, you can also make some streaking effects at this stage. This can be used to simulate grime streaks on the tank or a plane. Just be sure to pull the streaks in the right direction. When cleaning up the smaller detailed work, take a little more care. If you wipe across something like a rivet too hard, it may clean up more than you intended. And finally, be prepared to go through tons of Q-tips or paper towels when doing this. The final results make those panel lines and small details of your model pop. For a more extreme contrast, you'd want to use a very dark color or just plain black. To tone it down and make it more subtle, push back the color to a lighter gray. Have a go at it and experiment. Using oil paints for washes is just one option. You can also use acrylic paints, pastels, or pre-made wash products off the shelf. You can even use a pencil or micron pen to make panel lines stand out. I won't explain the pencil pen thing here since it's pretty straightforward, but I never liked the results. The process for applying the wash is pretty much the same. Load the brush, fill in the lines or let it pool around the details, let dry, and clean up. Preparing the wash, however, is different for these types of mediums mentioned here. Let's take a look. To use acrylic paints, you want to mix about a 20:1 ratio of water to paint. When applying the acrylic wash, you'd want to take care not to make too big of a mess, as it's pretty hard to clean up once dry, even with the gloss coat on the model. It's even better if you can clean it up while you're applying it. You can use alcohol as a medium for cleanup. I actually use airbrush cleaner to do it, and it seems to work out pretty well. This method is cheap since you most likely have the paints already. However, it's less forgiving since you do not want to have any overflow to clean up. As I mentioned before, it can be hard to clean up. Please note as well that I've only done this method with Vallejo paints. I do not know how other paints like Tamiya or Reaper would fare. Hard or chalk pastels was something I use a lot for weathering my models. I still use pastels sometimes today, but I've been putting it aside for other products and other techniques that have come in the hobby in the last couple of years. But still extremely viable, and you still save money when compared to some pre-made products in the market. There is a downside of hard pastels, and that is, well, basically it's chalk. It can be wiped off or even blown off your model pretty easily if you're not careful. Preparing pastels as a wash is a little more work than oil or acrylic paints. What we need to do first is grind the chalk into powder. I'm using the back of a hobby knife to do it here. You can also use sandpaper to grind the chalk. This is actually a much better way of doing it since it makes for a really fine powder, but it's messy and it weighs some of the pastels and sticks to the sandpaper. I grind a powder to about the size of a large pill, then I dilute it with about a 1 to 20 mix of powdered water. Mix it up really good and it's ready for usage. There are a couple washes in the market I'd recommend. The product I mainly use is the Palmolive's wash. It's a clay-based wash and works really well and cleans up very easily. It comes in different colors as well. There's also the Vallejo washes, which I've heard great things about but have yet to pick up some. That will be for a different time and for a different video. Now once you're satisfied with the results, don't forget to put another clear coat on to protect your work. Now this could be a gloss coat, matte coat, or satin finish depending on what your next step's going to be. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it helped you out a lot. And remember, like if you like, sub if you haven't, and favorite if you love me. I'll talk to you guys later.